Hollywood built an empire based on the perfect image of its stars. Strong men, conquerors, icons of masculinity. But behind that facade, there were secrets that could never be revealed. Actors who lived love affairs in secrecy, romances that the industry censored, and scandals that, if exposed at the time, would have destroyed entire careers. Some of these names died in obscurity, others in scandal, and a few managed to leave clues of what they truly lived. Today, we bring to light the 12 stories of those famous figures who lived in the shadows, whose forbidden romances were buried with them. Because Hollywood could hide them, but the truth always finds a way to surface. Rock Hudson was the fantasy of millions of women. On screen, he was the perfect man, masculine, charismatic, and always in control. But his real life was a facade constructed by Hollywood. The studios watched him closely, arranged dates with actresses for the press, and even forced him into a marriage of convenience with his secretary to dispel any suspicion. For years, he lived a double life, surrounded by a circle of friends who protected him. His most well-known relationship was with Mark Christian, a much younger man, with whom he spent his final years. But tragedy struck when Hudson became the first major Hollywood name to be diagnosed with a disease the industry refused to acknowledge. When the news came to light, he was abandoned by friends and colleagues who feared the scandal. His physical decline was shocking, and the photos from his last public appearance left the world in disbelief. Hollywood, which had once elevated him to the highest heights, let him die in solitude. Only after his death did his true story come to light. Cary Grant had the charm and elegance of a British gentleman, but behind his flawless image, he kept a secret that Hollywood never wanted to accept. For more than a decade, he shared a mansion in Malibu with fellow actor Randolph Scott. The press of the time published photos of them together, in bathrobes, enjoying the beach relationship that seemed to be more than just friendship. The rumors were unstoppable, and the studios went into a panic. They arranged marriages with several actresses to divert attention, but the rumors never disappeared. Even when Grant married his first wife, Virginia Cherrill, his relationship with Scott remained intact. The pressure from the industry led him to marry 4 more times, but none of his wives were able to completely erase the doubts. When the golden age of Hollywood ended, Grant avoided speaking on the matter until his death. Randolph Scott, for his part, married a woman, but it said he never stopped staying in contact with Grant. Was it a forbidden love that could never be shown, or simply a friendship too intimate for the times? James Dean was the rebellious idol of an entire generation. His intense gaze and defiant attitude turned him into a legend in just 3 films. But behind his image of the misunderstood heartthrob, there was a private life full of secrets, clandestine relationships, and dangerous obsessions. His connection with Marlon Brando is one of Hollywood's most controversial. It's said that Dean admired Brando to the point of obsession, and that Brando, with his dominant personality, would play psychological games with him. The relationship between them was strange. Brando would ignore him and then pull him back in, creating a power dynamic that many described as destructive. But Brando wasn't the only one. Dean had relationships with several influential men in Hollywood who helped him rise in the industry, though he never confirmed nor denied anything. Once, when asked directly about his private life, he responded, "I'm not going to live my whole life with one hand tied behind my back," leaving the interpretation wide open. His tragic accident in 1955 cut all those questions short. He died young, leaving more doubts than answers, with a life that seemed filled with love, but also manipulation and secrets that could never come to light. Marlon Brando was the only one who dared to admit the truth. But by then, it was too late. For years, he was the epitome of masculinity in Hollywood, strong, imposing, and charismatic. But in his later years, he dropped the mask and confessed that he had relationships with both women and men. One of the names always linked to him was James Dean, with whom, according to rumors, he had a toxic relationship based on control and submission. It was said that Brando enjoyed dominating him, keeping him close, but never allowing him to get too close. But Dean wasn't the only one. There were whispers of relationships with Richard Pryor, Montgomery Clift, and even dancer Rudolf Nureyev. When Brando was asked about these rumors in the 70s, he laughed and didn't deny anything, letting the mystery grow on its own. When he died in 2004, his memoirs revealed nothing about his private life. He took the truth to the grave, leaving only fragments of scattered confessions and a sea of rumors that were never fully confirmed. Laurence Olivier was the quintessential British actor, a legend in both film and theater. His talent was unquestionable, but his personal life was always surrounded by speculation, especially regarding his relationship with the charismatic actor and comedian Danny Kaye. For years, Olivier and Kaye were inseparable. They traveled together, shared events, and had a friendship that many considered too close. At one point, Olivier even moved into Kaye's house, which only fueled the rumors. The controversy grew when Vivian Leigh, Olivier's wife, began to notice that her husband seemed more attentive to Danny than to her. It is said that Kaye had a special influence over Olivier, affecting his decisions and even his career. Nothing was ever officially confirmed, but in Hollywood, it was whispered that their friendship was merely a facade for a romance that could never be shown publicly. Olivier, with his image of a proper English gentleman, never spoke about it, and neither did Kaye, but their relationship remains an enigma that history has never fully unraveled. Anthony Perkins will always be remembered as Norman Bates in Psycho, but his true hardest role was pretending to be someone he wasn't. From the beginning of his Hollywood career, he was forced to hide his sexual orientation, to reject his identity, in order to fit into a system that didn't accept differences. For years, he had a relationship with Tab Hunter, another teen idol, but always in the shadows, away from the flashes and paparazzi. The fear of being discovered even led him to undergo conversion therapy, a cruel practice aimed at curing what, in reality, didn't need fixing. When he eventually married a woman, many saw it as a strategy to protect his career, but the secret he had kept his entire life came to light after his death in 1992, when it was revealed that he had lived in fear, hiding his true identity until the very end. Tab Hunter was the teenage heartthrob every girl adored, but his heart never belonged to any of them. Hollywood turned him into the model of the perfect man, but behind the cameras, he fought a battle against a system that wouldn't let him be himself. His romance with Anthony Perkins was one of the best-kept secrets of the industry. They met in the 1950s, and a connection quickly formed that went beyond friendship, but the studios couldn't allow it. Executives manipulated the press, created fake romances for him, and threatened to destroy his career if the truth came out. When his relationship with Perkins ended, Hunter moved on with his life, but he never forgot the fear he felt during those years. It wasn't until decades later, in his memoirs, that he confessed everything he had lived through in silence. George Nader never reached the fame of his friend Rock Hudson, but in Hollywood circles, he was part of the select group of actors who lived under the industry's double standard. Hudson and Nader were inseparable. They shared vacations, events, and even the same circle of friends at private gatherings where they could be themselves without the fear of being discovered. But while Hudson was protected by the studios due to his success, Nader was sacrificed to protect others. When the press began investigating the private lives of stars, Universal quietly decided to expose him to divert attention away from Rock Hudson. Nader, not being a top-tier actor, was quietly blacklisted, losing work opportunities until his career crumbled. In time, he retired and turned to writing, but he never stopped being Hudson's loyal friend, who in his later years trusted him more than anyone else. Sal Mineo was the teen star who conquered cinema with his role in Rebel Without a Cause. His talent was undeniable, but what Hollywood never wanted to accept was his private life. Unlike other actors of his time, Mineo wasn't afraid to show who he truly was, which cost him his career in just a few years. Despite having worked with some of the greatest, in the 1960s, his roles mysteriously disappeared. He was relegated to small roles in television and theater, while the studios made sure his image never shone in cinema again. The most tragic part was how his life ended. In 1976, he was murdered in an alley, stabbed without apparent reason. Although the official version pointed to a simple robbery, many believe his death had a much darker backdrop. Some speculate that someone wanted to make sure his story would never come to light. The truth is, in his final years, Sal Mineo had begun speaking more openly about his life, something Hollywood never forgave him for. Montgomery Clift had everything an actor could desire: talent, beauty, success. But his private life was a whirlwind of secrets, forbidden loves, and a constant battle with himself. Unlike other heartthrobs of his time, Clift never married nor showed any interest in building a leading man image for the press. This made rumors about his private life grow quickly. Hollywood knew the truth, but Clift refused to play the game of the industry. While others accepted arranged marriages or fake love stories for the press, he simply avoided speaking on the subject. But the pressure, fear, and repression tore him apart from the inside. Everything worsened after the car accident in 1956 that nearly disfigured him. Elizabeth Taylor, his best friend, and perhaps the only person who knew all his secrets, was the one who pulled him from the wreckage. From that moment on, Clift fell into a spiral of self-destruction. The studio stopped hiring him, his friends abandoned him, and his health rapidly deteriorated. He died alone in 1966 in his apartment, with his career destroyed and the certainty that he had never been able to live his love freely. Richard Chamberlain was the heartthrob of television and film during the 60s and 70s, the man every woman desired, but who could never live his love freely. He shot to fame with Dr. Kildare and later starred in Shogun and the Thornbirds, always playing the perfect romantic hero. But behind that ideal image, Chamberlain lived with constant fear. He knew that if the world discovered the truth about his private life, his career would be over. So he remained silent for decades, accepting the role of the seducer on screen while hiding his true self in real life. It wasn't until the 2000s, when he was already out of Hollywood's spotlight, that he decided to tell his story. In his memoirs, he confessed that he had spent his entire career hiding, living in fear of being discovered. The man so many women dreamed of having could never love without fear. Noel Coward was not only an actor but also a playwright, singer, and one of the most influential figures in British entertainment. His talent was undeniable, but his private life was always surrounded by speculation and mystery. Unlike many Hollywood stars, Coward never tried to fake relationships with women for the press, although he didn't openly discuss it either. His circle of friends knew the truth, but society at the time was not ready to accept it. One of the biggest rumors in his life was his relationship with the Duke of Kent, brother of King George VI, something that was unthinkable at the time. The royal family never confirmed it, but the closeness between the two caused a scandal in aristocratic circles. Despite everything, Coward achieved what many couldn't: live his life without submitting to Hollywood's rules. Hollywood sold us stories of perfect love, but its own stars lived romances marked by fear, secrecy, and censorship. Loves that could never be shown, relationships that were silenced, and lives that ended in either obscurity or scandal. Some managed to break the silence before they died, others took their truth to the grave. But one thing is certain, Hollywood's story isn't the one they told us. Which of these stories impacted you the most? Let me know in the comments, and don't miss the next episode, where we continue uncovering the secrets the industry tried to bury.